Okay, so let's get started on our form input wave project. I have my project starter open here. I'm just going to say form input wave. And then let's get rid of this H1, and we're just going to wrap a container around our form. So we'll have a container with an H1. We'll just say please log in. It's just a basic login form. And we'll have a form tag here. We don't need an action. And in here we're going to have a form-control, which will wrap around the input, which is going to be type text. I'm also going to add required, which will just give it some basic validation. And then the label is going to go underneath, and we don't really need a for, so we'll get rid of that and say email. And then I'm going to go ahead and copy that down. And this one is going to be password. So type password and label password. Underneath that form control, we're going to have a button, and I'm going to give it a class of btn, and let's just say login. And then we'll have a div with the class of text. Actually, let's do we'll do a paragraph with a class of text and say don't have an account. And if they don't have an account, then we'll just have a link. It doesn't have to go anywhere, and say register. All right, so that's our form. Pretty simple. Now, before I get into the CSS, I just want to kind of explain what we're going to be doing as far as how to do this. And we want to use JavaScript to basically wrap each letter in a span, and we're going to have a transition on that span to move it up. So, or a transform translate Y value to move it up with a transition to make it smooth. And in JavaScript, when we wrap the span around each letter, we're also going to add a transition delay to each one that increases every letter, so that the first one goes up, and then the M would be delayed, then it would go up, A would be even more delayed, then it would go up. So it gives it that wave effect. So that's ultimately what we're going to end up with. In fact, I'll go ahead and just paste in what these labels will look like afterwards. So basically we'll have the label tag. You don't have to put this in. I'm just showing you as an example. We'll have each letter wrapped in a span with a transition delay that increments. So I'm just going to comment that out, but just so you can see what we're going to end up with. But before we get into any of that, let's just do some basic styling on this form because it looks horrible. So I'm going to use the Mully font. So we'll do family equals MULI, and then let's set that on the body. And then I'm going to set a background color for the body to steel blue, and the color of the text to white. That, and then let's style, let's see, we'll do the container, and let's add a background color of RGBA. I want it to have just kind of a transparent look, so black, and then 0.4 for the alpha value. And let's add padding. So padding, we're going to do 20 pixels top and bottom, 40 left and right. And let's add a slight border radius of 5 pixels. All right, and then let's do container H1. So for that, I want to text align to the center. I also want to add a margin on the bottom of 30 pixels. Okay, and then the link, let's say container A, which is just a register link. I want to text decoration none. Take away the underline, and the color will be, let's set the color to light blue. So now we want to get into the form fields. First we have the form control, which wraps around the input and the label. So let's say form control, and I'm going to position that relative because I want the label to be positioned absolute within it. And then for margin, let's do 20 top and bottom, 0 left and right, 40 bottom. And I'm going to just set a width of 300 pixels. All right, and then let's do the inputs. So form control input. I'm going to set the background color to transparent, and then get rid of that border. But I do want a border on the bottom. Oops. So let's say border border dash bottom, and I'm going to set that to 2 pixels. Let's do white and solid. Okay, now I want it on its own line, so instead of inline, we want to display block. I also want it to go all the way across, so we'll set width to 100%. And we'll add some padding. Let's do 15 pixels on the top and bottom. And the font size for the input, I'm going to set to 18 pixels. And I think we should be good there. Let's set the color to white. And then the border here, or the outline I should say, we want to get rid of that. Also, if I submit and it's invalid, you get that border as well. So let's target form control input, and when it's in its focus, also we want form control input valid. And we're going to just set the outline on that to 0. Okay, so now we don't have that ugly border. Now, before we do it, I think we're going to do the label stuff in the next video, but let's finish like the button and the text down here. So we have a class of, actually we'll put this up, we'll do all the form stuff down at the bottom. So let's do btn, and I'm just going to set the cursor to a pointer. I'm going to display as an inline block for our button here, and I want it to go all the way across, so we'll say width 100%, and let's set the background of the button to light blue, and let's set the padding, we'll do padding 15 pixels, and let's, for font family, we're going to inherit, and then for font size, let's set that to 16 pixels. And the border, we want to get rid of that, so border 0, and I'm going to make the border radius the same as the container, 5 pixels. And I think that's all we want to do. Let's say btn focus, set that outline. Actually, we can add that down here. No, because we're going to add something else there. Yeah, let's just do outline 0 on btn focus. And we can have a little hover effect too. So, I mean, not hover, click effect or hover, whatever you want. So we're going to do button, and when it's active, so when we click down on it, we're going to add a transform and just scale it down a bit. So scale it from 1 to 0.98. So we get that little effect. All right. Yeah, so I think, what else? The text here, we can move that down a little bit. So under the button stuff, we have a class of text. And I'm just going to set the margin top to 30 pixels. Push that down a bit. Now, the label, don't worry about that. We're gonna style that next. And like I said, we need to use JavaScript to turn the label into letters with spans around them with a transition delay. We're also going to add a transition, obviously, on the label span. So we'll get into that in the next video.